Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. You are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Clint Daly, coming to you from the Mile High City here in Denver, Colorado, and we are back for another week of talking sports with a dose of common sense. Hey, happy Wednesday to you. Hope your week is going well. Hope it's off to a good start. Hey, you're halfway to another weekend, and you know, we are just in a perfect time of year right now. Weather's just a little bit cooler. Weather's just a little more crisp. The leaves are beginning to fall. Football season is rolling. The Major League Baseball playoffs are rolling. And don't look now, the NHL has begun. The NBA is coming. It is a lovely, lovely time of the year. And you know, we have so much to get to today. We've got to jump in right away because it was another busy week in the world of football this past weekend, in both college and in the NFL. And for as much as we think we always know during these seasons, I mean, none of us seem to be picking every single game correctly, do we? Like every single week, there are surprises. There are things we didn't see coming. I mean, the NFL saw a few surprises this week. The Cleveland Browns knocked off the previously unbeaten San Francisco 49ers. And as bad as that was for the Niners, that wasn't actually the worst news of the week because they also lost wide receiver Deebo Samuel, offensive tackle Trent Williams, and running back Christian McCaffrey to injuries. Now, none of those injuries sound too serious, but each of those players could be on the shelf for a week or two. And you know, we did find out the Niners kind of need those guys. I know they've got a lot of weapons. They need those weapons. Looking at that game, Brock Purdy wasn't quite the same without his help around him. Now, having said that, he did still put that team in a position to win, except for the kicker couldn't make a kick at the end of the game. But also keep in mind, we're not sure if the Browns are even going to be a playoff team. I have no idea how good they'll be. Very, very good defense. I'm not sure about that offense. I don't know how good that offense is going to be all year. The New York Jets also managed to beat the previously unbeaten Philadelphia Eagles in a game, honestly, that set offensive football back a few decades. The Jets won 20-14 on Sunday, but were outgained 348 to 244 in total yardage. But Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts also threw 3 interceptions, and the last one was the worst one. Completely inexplicable what he was doing there. But again, the worst news wasn't just lost. It was that the Eagles have now placed starting right tackle Lane Johnson on injured reserve. That sounds like a pretty serious ankle injury. Wait, you know what? No, that wasn't the worst news. The worst news was that with these two teams losing on Sunday, we once again had to witness the old, tired 72 Miami Dolphins break out their shots of Turbolax or whatever in celebration of still being the only undefeated team in NFL history. I am tired of seeing that every single year. Go eat your Jell-O and hush. No one wants to hear from the 72 Dolphins anymore. I'm tired of those old heads anyways. The biggest surprise in college football, though, was probably the number 10 USC Trojans getting throttled by number 21 Notre Dame. Heisman-winning quarterback Caleb Williams threw 3 interceptions. And I'll be honest, he didn't look like the top pick in the draft on Saturday. He didn't look like a back-to-back Heisman winner either. That might have shot his Heisman down in flames. We talked last week about how USC looked to me like a team that could easily drop a few games, and their schedule is actually going to ramp up from here. Yeah, that is looking very, very possible. The Georgia Bulldogs beat Vanderbilt on Saturday. It wasn't that convincing, but they won by 17. But Georgia also lost Heisman hopeful tight end Brock Bowers to an ankle injury, and it sounds like he might be done for the season. He's going to have surgery to repair that ankle, and that is terrible news for Georgia. The Washington Huskies made Oregon Ducks head coach Dan Lanning pay for his stupid fourth down decisions on Saturday. And Huskies quarterback Michael Penix, yeah, he is looking like a real Heisman candidate. He lit the Ducks up for 300 yards. He threw for 4 touchdowns. And Washington keeps their unbeaten streak alive. And they are now in the driver's seat in the Pac-12 as they scrape out a close win over Oregon. Finally, speaking of the Pac-12, got one more game we're going to need to discuss, aren't we? Yeah. The Colorado Buffaloes. They took a 29-0 lead into the locker room at halftime of their homecoming game on Friday night against an awful 1-4 Stanford team. Game's over, right? Well, Colorado thought so. Unfortunately, Stanford did not think so. The Cardinal came out in the second half and ran off 26 straight points to start off the second half. And Coach Prime and his defensive staff, they had no answers for a Stanford team that was averaging 19 points per game going into this game. Okay. But the Buffs are going to take care of this. They responded. They scored a touchdown. They made it 36-26. But you are starting to see some cracks in that Colorado team. Stanford rallied to score the final 10 points of the game and sent it into overtime, tied at 36. Okay, so CU scores a touchdown in just 5 plays in the first overtime. Okay, now this game's over. Except Stanford scored a touchdown in 1 play. That's not good. In the second overtime, Coach Prime's son, and apparently watch salesman Shedeur Sanders, chucked up a terrible pass into the end zone that was intercepted. And then Stanford just drove up the middle, got into field goal range, kicked a field goal, and ended the game. Final score, Stanford 46, Colorado 43. Again, after leading 29-0. And I know the hippies up in Boulder, they are spinning this whole, well, we only won 1 game all of last year. So this is fine. This is okay. And that's totally true. Except you didn't get your guts ripped out last year like this. Now you are the subject of an SNL skit making fun of your inflated egos. But honestly, this is what I expected after we saw them stumble in that, again, multiple overtime win over Colorado State. Colorado has grown a very inflated sense of themselves. However, it is starting to look as if maybe, just maybe, Coach Prime has recruited a bunch of highly talented me first guys that were in the transfer portal for a reason. Because they all have their own agendas. They all want to shine on their terms. And against Stanford, that really started to become evident. The Buffs were flagged 17 times for 127 yards. The PA announcer at Folsom Field had to be told to stop playing music while Stanford had the ball. No one does that. Boulder, who do you think you are? We saw players arguing in the game on the sideline. One defensive player actually yelled at Coach Prime himself. Now, you're going to finish up the season with 3 ranked teams and 1 team just outside the top 25? You know, if you are looking for a loser from this weekend of football, it has to be the Colorado Buffaloes. And I know early in the season, Colorado was telling all of us, hey, the fan base is just so excited that we can't help ourselves. We have to rush the field. But I didn't see them rushing the field after their homecoming game. And you know what's worse is you know that if they had won, if they had beaten 1-4 Stanford, oh, they absolutely would have run the field. I guarantee that. Okay, YouTube, make sure you go over and you check out the rest of the podcast today. We are going to be talking a little bit of Major League Baseball playoffs. We actually have a very interesting story coming out in college basketball, and we're going to do something a little different. We even talk a little bit of WNBA finals. I know that might be hard for you to believe, but this week in The Dose, we are actually going to begin previewing just a little bit of the NBA season. We're going to look at some contenders, some pretenders, some teams on the rise, and some teams that are still kind of hanging around that could be a threat to win it all. Plus, our Daly Dose Top 5 is counting down some of the greatest head coaches in NFL history. So make sure you go over and check out the full podcast. I will leave a link here in the comments on YouTube for you. Hope you all are doing well. I will see you next Wednesday. Have a great week.